When the supply chain fractures, it does not announce itself with sirens. It begins with subtle delays, small gaps on shelves, substitutions in online orders, and quiet notices about limited quantities. Then distribution centers slow, fuel deliveries miss schedules, refrigerated trucks idle without diesel, payment systems glitch. Within days, the visual abundance that defines modern life evaporates. The danger is not abstract scarcity, it is metabolic destabilization on a population scale. Cities are sustained by continuous logistical motion. Grocery stores typically hold only a few days of inventory. Warehouses are calibrated for efficiency, not interruption. When replenishment stops, consumption does not. Panic accelerates depletion. In less than 72 hours, perishable foods disappear. Within a week, the majority of high-turnover staples are gone. The real crisis begins after the shelves are empty, when households discover that calories alone are not enough. Most people prepare incorrectly because they misunderstand what survival nutrition demands under infrastructure failure. They assume that stockpiling rice, pasta, flour, sugar, and canned soups guarantees safety. These items provide energy, but energy without balance becomes a liability. Under stress, the human body shifts hormonally. Cortisol rises, sleep becomes irregular, blood glucose regulation weakens. High glycemic diets amplify fatigue, irritability, and impaired judgment. In a prolonged disruption, cognitive clarity is a survival tool. Food must stabilize energy, not spike and crash it. The hidden principle is glycemic control under stress. Legumes, stable fats, and protein-dense foods produce slower glucose release and sustained metabolic output. Yet these foods are often neglected because they require planning, preparation knowledge, or slightly higher upfront cost. Protein is not optional. During prolonged stress or reduced caloric intake, the body begins breaking down muscle tissue to maintain essential functions. Muscle mass is metabolic reserve. It supports immune competence, wound healing, and physical capability. Without sufficient amino acids, resilience erodes quickly. Shelf-stable protein sources, canned fish, canned poultry, freeze-dried meats, lentils, split peas, textured vegetable protein, powdered dairy, retain functional amino acid profiles for extended periods when stored properly. Freeze-drying, in particular, removes moisture under low temperature and vacuum conditions, minimizing structural damage to nutrients. Compared to conventional dehydration, it better preserves vitamins and protein integrity. However, freeze-dried foods require water for reconstitution. This creates a coupling problem. Food selection must account for water availability. Water becomes the next constraint. In a grid failure, municipal pumping stations may cease operation. Even if water flows, treatment systems may be compromised. Boiling requires fuel. Chemical purification requires stored supplies. Filtration systems require maintenance and replacement components. Many staple foods, rice, dry beans, pasta, assume abundant clean water and sustained heat. In a constrained environment, resource-efficient foods become strategic assets. Canned legumes can be eaten without cooking. Nut butters provide fat and protein with no preparation. Shelf-stable dairy beverages offer calories and nutrients in ready-to-consume form. The science of survival food is not about shelf life alone. It is about minimizing dependency chains. Fats are frequently mishandled in emergency storage because of fear of rancidity. Yet fat is the most energy-dense macronutrient, providing more than twice the calories per gram compared to carbohydrates or protein. In a scenario where storage space and transport capacity are limited, caloric density matters. The challenge is oxidative stability. Oils high in polyunsaturated fats degrade rapidly when exposed to heat, oxygen, and light. More stable options include saturated or monounsaturated fat sources, stored in airtight, opaque containers in cool environments. clarified butter with low moisture content, properly sealed coconut oil, and vacuum-packed nut butters resist oxidation longer than many seed oils. Without stable fats, diets become disproportionately carbohydrate-heavy, accelerating energy instability and micronutrient depletion. Micronutrients are the silent variable in supply chain collapse. Vitamin C, essential for immune function and connective tissue maintenance, degrades with exposure to oxygen and heat. Fresh fruits and vegetables are primary sources in modern diets. When distribution halts, these disappear first. Within weeks, deficiency risk rises. Fermented vegetables, canned tomatoes, freeze-dried fruits, and properly stored powdered greens can preserve essential vitamins far longer than fresh produce. Fermentation is one of the most energy-efficient preservation technologies ever developed. Salt inhibits pathogenic growth, while lactic acid bacteria produce acids that stabilize the environment. This process retains significant micronutrient content while requiring minimal ongoing energy input. Historically, societies relied on fermentation not for flavor alone, but for winter survival. Electrolytes represent another overlooked factor. Sodium is abundant in processed foods, but potassium and magnesium are often deficient when fresh produce is removed. These minerals regulate nerve transmission, muscle contraction, and cardiovascular stability. Chronic imbalance increases fatigue and cramps, impairing physical function during crisis. Legumes, dried sea vegetables, certain whole grains, and balanced electrolyte formulations can prevent this decline. Survival planning must consider mineral density as deliberately as caloric quantity. Food psychology also influences outcomes. Dietary monotony reduces appetite over time, even when calories are available. Stress compounds this effect. Research in confined and extreme environments demonstrates that flavor variety and texture diversity sustain adequate intake. Small additions, dried herbs, spices, vinegar powders, shelf-stable sauces occupy minimal storage space, yet dramatically enhance palatability. Sustained caloric intake is not physical maintenance, it preserves morale, which directly affects decision-making and cooperation in high-stress environments. Storage science determines whether food remains viable. Oxygen exposure accelerates oxidation and insect activity. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers create low-oxygen environments that dramatically extend grain and legume shelf life when combined with cool, low-humidity storage. Temperature is a critical multiplier. Every 10 degrees Celsius increase approximately doubles the rate of many chemical degradation reactions. A food rated for 10 years at cool temperatures may degrade in half that time under heat. Moisture control prevents mold and bacterial growth. Desiccants, airtight containers, and elevated storage off concrete floors reduce risk of condensation and spoilage. As disruption extends beyond 2 weeks, supply substitution begins at community levels. Informal trade networks emerge. In these systems, nutrient density becomes currency. Protein, fats, salt, and preserved produce hold greater exchange value than refined sugars or low-nutrient snacks. Economic resilience intertwines with nutritional foresight. A household that stores balanced staples maintains leverage and bargaining power in localized scarcity. Agricultural recovery is slower than most assume. Modern farms depend heavily on diesel fuel, synthetic fertilizers derived from natural gas, centralized processing plants, and coordinated transport. Even if fields are productive, distribution bottlenecks can prevent food from reaching population centers. Growing food locally requires seeds, soil fertility, water access, and time. Harvest cycles cannot be compressed beyond biological limits. This creates a temporal gap between disruption and adaptation. Stored food must bridge that gap. The size of this buffer defines stability. Cooking efficiency becomes decisive when fuel is scarce. Pressure cookers reduce cooking time dramatically by raising boiling temperature under pressure, decreasing fuel consumption for dry staples like beans. Retained heat cooking systems allow food to reach boil and then finish cooking in insulated containers without continued fuel use. Solar ovens can supplement energy when weather permits. Integrating these methods multiplies the value of stored staples. Without fuel strategy, dry bulk foods become impractical liabilities. Immune resilience depends on more than vitamins. Adequate protein, sufficient sleep, hydration, and micronutrient sufficiency collectively sustain immune response. In crisis, sleep often degrades due to stress and environmental instability. Poor diet compounds vulnerability. Balanced survival food planning reduces one of these variables. It cannot eliminate stress, but it can prevent compounding physiological decline.